Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
Why do so many hauntings have such physical characteristics? Can ghosts carry guns? Are there ghosts of guns?
Hey there, and welcome to the 449th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and those strange questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. So this evening we bring you an old friend to report on a very unusual case in Massachusetts. If you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, you can call us locally at 401-766-1240 or anywhere from the United States, or Canada, actually, at 800-449-1240.
I'll correct that. It's the 489th show. My son's using Emerson math or Woonsocket math.
Sorry, Emerson math. Yeah, can't do math.
All right. Anyway, Shane Sirois has been a paranormal investigator for many years, and along with his wife Karen, helps people with paranormal and spiritual issues. I first met Shane about 13 years ago during a case right here in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. I don't get close to people easily, and I seldom work with other investigators, but Shane and I were brothers from the start. I have always found him to be able, compassionate, spiritually adept, and with his feet on the ground. His website is www.trueghost.com. He and his family live in New Hampshire. Shane is a native of Worcester, Massachusetts, on the edge of our listening area.
So Shane, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal.
Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Wunderbar. Alrighty, so let's get right to the show. Before we play our recordings, tell us about the case in Pepperell, Massachusetts.
Well, the family lived in the home. There's 3 generations, actually, that have lived in this home. And it started with back in about 1953 when the first generation had moved into the house. The house was constructed by materials that were collected from the debris from the tornado in Worcester way back in the day. Someone went down there, collected all the debris, and built this house. And so this family moved into it. And right off the bat, they started experiencing some paranormal phenomena. They were hearing voices, growling, footsteps. They had, at one point, let's call her the grandmother, since there's 3 generations. She's the first generation. We'll call her the grandmother. She was in her bedroom. She heard a knocking at the door. She opened the door, and there was a 2-3 foot tall porcelain doll, like an old-fashioned porcelain doll, that was hovering in the air at eye level, and it stayed there for a few seconds, and it dropped to the floor. There were all kinds of knocks on all the doors, strange lights throughout the house, flashing in the middle of nowhere, discharges and whatnot. So it started with that family. The father, let's call him the grandfather, I'm sorry. The grandfather, after moving into the house, began to display signs of rage and anger, and became an alcoholic. He would get massively intoxicated and go up to the room that is kind of a focal point for me during this investigation from the get-go. He'd go upstairs to this room with a shotgun, and he would just cock it over and over again and click the trigger and cock it and click the trigger, and he'd breathe heavy, and the grandmother, I should say. I'm getting confused with all the 3 generations. Excuse me, but the grandmother, or the lady of the head of household, she would gather the kids up, put them in the car, and they would take off for the night. And I asked them. I said, "Were you in fear that he would kill himself?" They said, "We are in fear that he would kill us and kill himself." And so they would take off for the night. And he pretty much. This got worse once all the kids grew up and moved out of the house. He became even more withdrawn and more angry. And once they left the house, it wasn't as bad. He didn't drink as much. He stopped drinking and he got better. Eventually he developed dementia and passed away. But it was definitely this house that I think really escalated, some problems with him psychologically and whatnot. So I think something might have latched on to him because it carried on through the generations pretty much the same way. And we can get, more into that. But the next generation, after the parents moved out, the lady that owns the house now, she married. She had a husband who was fine. They moved into this house. Same behaviors. Very angry, very abusive. The daughter, the third generation, she sent me an email just yesterday saying that he was abusive in every single way. Not a very nice guy at all. And she said after her parents got a divorce, things got worse. She became a target of this entity in this house. And we have different things going on, as we discussed, the gunshots being heard and the clicking of the gun, these, emotional time slips or whatnot. But I think this was all brought on, these strong emotions were all exasperated by, this parasitic entity that had crossed over. The first home, and the grandmother, the first generation that lived in this home, she used to say all the time that this thing is a train stop for spirits, and she said that since day one. And I think she's right. I think it definitely has an open door, and something nasty has stayed. Came in and stayed, and just feeds off of these people. And the families, admittingly they say, we've been quite dysfunctional over the years. Very, very dysfunctional family. And certainly that's probably one of the things that attracted this entity in, and this thing is just feeding off of it and bringing them down deeper and deeper and deeper. The house is now being renovated. They're going to be renting it out, and that's how they got in contact with me. They want to make sure that this thing is suitable for another family. And so we've gone in there and we've been investigating it, over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They no longer live there, but the house is still active because they still have an attachment to it. They still visit it, and right now it seems to be attached to the third generation daughter, who's a new mother, a 22-year-old. And this thing, when she was at the house, which we definitely try to discourage them to address if there is a negative entity. Of course, we don't want them talking to it. We want them to ignore it. Yeah. But she wanted to kind of confront her fears and things, and whenever she tried to address it in any way, the house just went crazy. So this thing is definitely reacting to her and attached to her at the time. So, and that's the next step, is we need to get into treating her and freeing up her, her life and her internal dialogue and everything, so she can get on with her newborn baby and she's engaged and start fresh without this thing hanging over her.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to get the timeline straight here, Shane. So 1953, the year I was born, by the way, there was this terrible tornado in June of that year in the Worcester area. It was probably the largest tornado in the recorded history of New England, and it started up by Quabbin Reservoir and went across the state and ended, I believe, around the Burncoat district. No, actually, it ended in Hopedale, I think. And I remember my father, who was a Worcester native, putting... I don't remember this myself because I was just a few months old, but my mother said he put us in the car and he was concerned about his friends and relatives from Worcester. We went up there. Now, when was the house built?
I believe what they told me was 1953. And
53, with using materials from many of the houses that
correct
were destroyed. Okay. All right. That's not an unusual procedure. And the family moved in at that time, and you've had 3 generations in there until very recently, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, you know our theories and methods because we've worked on a case or two together. And what do you think? What is your interpretation? What's going on? Of course, you've really given some of the interpretation, and that's something I would certainly agree with. Not having been involved in the case, but just hearing it, that you probably have a parasitical entity or one or more. And you have an area that let me ask you this: what is the site like? Have you investigated the area around it? Is it rural? Is it urban? What's the site like?
It's a typical, residential area. It's not too busy. Pepperell's not a very large town anyway.
No.
Old town. It's got quite a history in itself, but it's just a typical residential street in a smaller town. And neighbors are, not too, like within an acre or so, half an acre away. Actually, on this property, there's two homes. There's the main house and then the cottage, and I believe they own both. And they're right now there's a resident in the smaller cottage, and I don't believe that there's been any activity reported there. But there has been activity reported outside the house. They used to get footprints in the snow outside their window that just didn't come from anywhere. They were just there, and they didn't leave. They just footprints that just came from out of no place outside their windows, like somebody was peering in them.
Yeah. Well, everything you say is familiar to me. What's unusual about this case, as you describe it, Shane, is that there were sort of dramatic and immediate phenomena. In most cases, like this or not like this, I've found that people will move into a house. It usually takes 3 to 4 months or more for the so to speak, the chemical mix, if you will, or the recipe kind of get mixed in the right way for phenomena to occur. The people have to fit in with the other ducks that are in line and this sort of thing. But this seems to be a very negative situation from the get-go. The past history, or you could even say the future history, there's got to be something going on that has attracted this entity. It may be, I don't know what your opinion is, but it could be attached to the land. We found that in many cases. And it waits for the next meal to come along, and in the form of people who might be kind of negative. So what's your interpretation overall of what's going on here? You've kind of started to say that, but what...
Yeah, I think we have a lot of different emotional factors, and emotion crosses over through all existence, and through the parallels. I mean, I think whether we have a multiple series of homes, that were destroyed, and that might have something to tie into it, but we have a family that has admitted to being dysfunctional since day one, and of course they tell stories of finding arrowheads when they moved onto the property and things like that, but I don't necessarily believe either that's always a bad thing. You can find those
anywhere in New England.
Yeah, and me being part Native American, it's not always a bad thing, but
absolutely.
But I think they do have a interest in the paranormal. They are open to it. They always have been. Their family through the generations have been open to it. So I think they're, as like we pay attention to this, and it feeds into the whole process. But I think there's just been a whole lot of emotional factors that have sent out waves, and have attracted some of these things in. Maybe opening that door, if you will, and then having this parasite come in and feeding off some of these emotions and this dysfunction, and then, like I said, further exasperating the problem, because here we got a man who became, suicidal possibly, and almost, I mean, they caught him with the shotgun to his head in his mouth, and they had to stop him from doing so. And then, the grandmother, fearing that her husband was gonna, kill them all, and kill himself, because he was that bad. And then after leaving the house was fine. But I think this entity's been there for a while, feeding off of them and just bringing them down deeper and deeper and darker. And before even get into this investigation, just on the ride over there, I could feel the darkness already. Like we've been doing this long enough that you get kind of tuned into the energies and this thing, I could feel a suicidal nature, and I get the picture in my head of the guy, and I described him as soon as I got to the house, and I said, this is what I'm seeing. I got right down to the small shred of clothing he was wearing, to the way he combed his hair, the color hair, saying he was suicidal, and they said, the current owner said, that's my father. You're describing my father.
Yeah.
And of course we get this EVP in the room upstairs of this gun clicking and the cocking and everything, and the gunshot. And she said, my father used to go up there and do this when he was angry. He did that all the time. She goes, that is the exact sound. She goes, that what you captured is my father up there.
Okay, well, we have a recording of that, and just for anyone who doesn't understand what an EVP is, it stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena. It's a big thing in paranormal investigations today. I have my own opinions on it. However, Shane seems to be really good at capturing these, and can we just we'll just play it right now. Now that's playing over and over again. It wasn't repeated like that. Now, did you hear that with the naked ear, so to speak, when you recorded that?
No, we actually, in one of the visits, I was hearing a gun cocking with my own ear, and it was very distant. But that particular day, we did not. And what I just recently found out, going over one of our digital infrared cameras, was actually on the other end of the upstairs level, and it caught the same exact noises, and of course it sounded like it was at the other end. So for instance, the audio recorder that captured that sound that you just played, that was actually the gunshot followed by a gun being cocked.
Yeah.
That was the second capture that we got, but that audio recorder was in one room. The digital recorder was on the other side. That audio recorder sounded like it was picking up something that was being done right next to it, whereas the digital camcorder, the infrared camcorder on the other side of the house, it sounded like it was coming from down the hall on the other side of the house. So it really did place it, as far as location as where it was taking place, quite well.
Why don't I play that first one then? It must be this one. And one more time.
Now, to start that one off, we captured a voice. Now, these recorders were in a room that nobody was allowed in. We were all downstairs. We were all quiet. I went over, protocol with them, and we were all quiet. These recorders were not set on a high sensitivity. They were on a very low sensitivity, so they would only pick up things that were in the near vicinity. But when I played it back, you hear a voice say, whisper, "Who is it?" And then the gun starts clicking. And we probably can't hear it over the radio being played, but there's a heavy breath in between the last two guns being cocked.
Okay. Let's go back to the beginning with this. All right. Now, the usual interpretation of this kind of thing, aside from anything else, is the so-called residual haunting. That somehow, but by process or processes unknown, a historical event, or sometimes I find future events, get recorded somehow on the environment. Now, I was one of the early advocates of that, but starting in the late 70s, I didn't think it was good enough. It didn't really explain a lot, really. It was just something people, I thought, would cling to because they didn't have any other explanation. In my opinion, with things like this, you're hearing the actual guy at the actual event actually doing what he's doing in the recording, because it's a time slip. I suppose you could call it that. That doesn't quite do it either. But a parallel world where he still exists, is still doing that, is overlapping with our consciousness, and in my opinion, that's what's happening. But be that as it may, which in a way makes it more immediate, and makes it kind of of more concern. So what you said that things like this began to happen to you as soon as you kind of walked in the door.
Immediately, which is rare.
It is rare, yeah.
Yeah, normally, at least 20 minutes, and sometimes an hour, and sometimes nothing at all. And actually,
sometimes a day or two in my case.
Yeah,
I'm just slower than you are, I guess, Shane.
No, most of the time, on most of these cases, of course, we've done thousands of these things, and sometimes we go there and nothing ever happens. But and it becomes, you never take it for granted, and I love doing it. I have such a passion for it, but sometimes you kind of do fall into a bit of a routine, because you do so many in a row that are just like one another, and but as soon as we walked in this house, I mean, within the first, not even the first minute, I walked in. I asked to walk in first, and I walked through the dining area into the kitchen, and then the family walked in behind me, and my wife walked in last. My wife, she works in law. Everything has to be exact. Everything has to be spelled out.
Sounds like my wife.
Yes. She doesn't exaggerate. She doesn't jump to conclusions. It has to be absolutely 100% factual in her head for her to even consider talking about it. And so she walked in last, and she came over to me, and she says, and she knows we try not to startle the client or whatever, or our friends that we visit, by, saying too many things in front of them sometimes, because, the whole fear thing, we don't try to add to it. But she goes, there was a man right next to me in that living room, which when you walk in, there's a little entryway. There's a staircase in front of you that goes upstairs. There's a living room to the left, the dining room to the right, and then the dining room goes into the kitchen to the back. And she goes, there was a man just talking right in that room right next to me. And she goes, I'm not kidding. She goes, I heard it plain as day. And then we walked into the kitchen, and I had my bag up on the counter of the kitchen, and I was going through it, gathering some stuff like a notebook so we could start taking notes and whatever. And she was looking over my shoulder towards the other side of the house, and on the other side of the kitchen there's a little bathroom, the cellar door, and the master bedroom. And she said there was a large discharge of light that just shot through that little area.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and she was, she goes, I'm very sure of this. I said, but, and then she goes, I said, well, there's doors over there. She goes, oh, okay. And then we walked over, and all the doors are closed, and the lights are off. One goes to the basement. She goes, no. She goes, it didn't come from anywhere else. It was airborne, and it was large. We've seen that same discharge in that same area, or not the same exact area, but within the kitchen, in that bedroom, in that entryway of the bathroom, in the closet. I mean, the cellar. Every visit that we've gone there, and it's been seen by multiple individuals.
Is it? I've seen what I believe are parasites on several occasions, of course, over the years, and they're almost like plasma beings, or at least that's how they come across. Almost like lightning with arms and legs. Is that what that looked like, or was it a blob?
It was just a blob, not like these dust particles that we see on these TV shows that are reflecting flashes or infrared signals. This was airborne. This was like a light mass just shooting through, and like I said, it's been seen by pretty much everybody that's been in this house during these investigations.
Sometimes we interpret those as world boundaries, not as entities. Because I don't know, again, that's your bailiwick, you were there. Do you feel that there's more than one parasite involved here?
No, I think there's one parasite. I think we have, like you said, time slips if we want to describe it as that. But I'm thinking the way I would diagnose it is just like you said. There are emotional time slips almost, these strong emotions that are crossing over into our existence, and I think that's the gunshot, the clicking. This guy was just really angry and self-loathing, and he's up in his room, possibly homicidal and suicidal, and so I think these strong emotions are crossing over through the parallels into ours. But I do believe there's one specific nasty entity in this house that is very intelligent. This thing's been playing games since the beginning of this investigation, and right on our first visit, every time I go upstairs, now if you try to envision this, please, you walk up the stairs. There's a wall to the right that is just the exterior. It doesn't go anywhere. And then right in front of you when you get to the top of the stairs, it's a little walkway, probably about 3 foot wide. And then there's a doorway in front of you. That goes into the bedroom where all this gun activity was taking place. If you have to turn left, then turn left again. There's a hallway there, so you're facing the opposite direction to go to the front of the house. This hallway is probably, it's real tight, 3 foot wide. The roof line actually comes up alongside your head, so you have to squeeze against that wall in order to not bump your head on the roof line. And then it goes into a front bedroom. Now, every time I walked up these stairs, I could feel and see a dark entity right at that corner, and it would bolt. It would run away from me, as they always do. They pick on everybody else, but when there's somebody there educated and knows how to deal with them, they run away.
Exactly.
Like cowards. And that thing kept bolting into the front bedroom and, believe it, going into the closet. And so I told them that, and, I think they heard me, but they didn't understand how much, this is not just I think, this is I know. And so I set up a motion detector in the hallway, and I said, watch this. I started walking up the stairs. I got 4 feet from that, turning that corner, so it's a solid wall all the way up. And I was 4 feet from even going on the other side of that hallway, or from breaking the plane of the wall, and getting within view of this motion detector. And I got, like I said, 4 foot up, and I felt and seen this thing bolt again, and it set that motion detector off. Whoa, real loud. They're like, what was that? Yeah. I said, I told you, this thing, it's running from me, and it's running to that front room.
Yeah, well, we're going to take a break now, Shane, but this is really great. We're going to come right back, and I've got a few questions for you to extrapolate on what you've been saying. And you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 AM in New England's beautiful Blackstone River Valley. We'll be right back with our guest, Shane Sirois. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Greg Bell, the host of When Radio Was.
Why, Mortimer! Bill. Is that you under that blindfold?
Bill, with this thing on, I can't see who I am.
No, I imagine not. Can't you see anything at all under that blindfold?
On a clear day, I can see the blindfold.
You can?
Yeah.
When Radio Was, shows from the past for today's imaginations.
When Radio Was airs Monday through Friday, right here on ON 1240 Radio at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m.
And we just wanted to remind you about two charities, the number of charities Ben and I have adopted. One is USA Cares, and it provides financial and advocacy assistance to post-9/11 active-duty U.S. military service personnel, veterans, and their families. They do a lot of great things. If these good folks, these heroes, are short of money for the mortgage or something, out goes a check. And we would like you to check that out yourself, usacares.org. Also, Canadian Veterans Advocacy. Marvelous situation there, organization there in Canada, which, as you know, has been with us shoulder to shoulder in Afghanistan since the beginning of the War on Terror. And they have their veterans issues, too. So, CanadianVeteransAdvocacy.org, they deserve your support and attention. So, check that out. Okay.
What?
Reintroduce us.
Oh, right. I was wondering why you pointed at me.
You're in trouble now.
Yeah, you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 AM radio. Our guest this evening, Shane Sirois, hanging out with us, and we're talking of his latest case, which is in I can't remember where in what town. Pepperell. I knew it was a fun name to say, sort of like Leominster. That's a very fun name to say as well. But anyway, we are continuing with our conversation. So Shane, take it away.
Well, actually, I had a couple of questions first.
Oh, right.
Not to step on your lines.
Okay. Yeah, take it away.
All right, there are a couple of things that I noticed with this that again, is unfortunately rather common. One is that you've got an entity that apparently has been preying upon or even farming the same family for generations. I've run into that, and it can be
That's a great word for it. Exactly what it's doing. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And also, you have people moving in, particularly the males, moving in, and their personalities are affected. I've seen that many times. It can be very, very bad because these things will not only just sit there and feed upon the negative stuff you bring in, they will push buttons and make you feel negative too sometimes, and it's really very, very bad. It can be very difficult to deal with. One thing I noticed too, from what you've described, is another typical situation that you have perhaps one of the what I refer to as sort of one of the top shelf or upper echelon species of parasites out of about the 9 different species I've noticed over the years. They tend to be very wise, not in a good sense necessarily. They, when you're in the presence of this thing, do you feel I know how I feel in the presence of these things. Do you feel, what kind of life form do you feel? I don't know. I'll tell you what I feel after you describe yours, because maybe it's the same.
Well, this one in particular, I mean, I have I have not been able to fully, encounter it. I've tried, but like I said, it keeps running from me. But
they are kind of cowards in the end.
It is pure darkness, and I mean, you could feel it with every ounce of your being. This is one that I haven't felt this strong in quite some time.
Yeah, no, that's familiar to me. I think of them as almost alien, at the risk of misunderstanding, or maybe not misunderstanding. I've noticed they just seem sterile. They're not without life, but almost lifeless. And I think of the traditions of our, particularly the Europeans and the Middle Eastern people, about life-sucking ghosts, which is how the ancient Babylonians described them. And one wonders, are these life-sucking ghosts the actual sources of our legends about vampires? The darkness that you describe comes through in folklore as well. I mean, people throughout history have experienced these entities. They do feed on us. They don't see, I don't know, they seem to be physical, because I've had physical confrontations with them, and you yourself have had a motion detector. How's a spirit going to affect a motion detector? So I think that however much they are in our world, the more physical they can be. I don't know. That's the way I've always seen it. Ben, do you have any thoughts? Does this remind you of that Attleboro case at all?
Refresh me. Attleboro?
Well, you did that one by yourself a couple of years ago.
That wasn't Attleboro. It was Foxborough.
Foxborough, I beg your pardon.
That's why I didn't know what you were talking about.
Go Pats. Okay.
That's why I didn't know what you were talking about. I was like, Attleboro? Did I go to Attleboro? Anyway, well, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to recall the case. It
was a real negative situation.
Yeah, it was extremely negative. I mean,
all you were in there with a bunch of
the son and there was an older son who barricaded himself in his room, did satanic stuff. The occult
behavior did seem to be negatively affected.
Occult type of things, and I'm trying to think what else was going on in that case. It was just a really bad situation.
Yeah, it wasn't as straightforward as this one was, though, because
no. Well, it was kind of straightforward.
Yeah,
I mean, all you had to do was just really kick the sun out, and bam, probably would have been hunky dory.
Yeah, well,
I haven't heard any updates myself. What's going on?
So now another thing that concerns us, Shane, is that you've got the place being renovated and they're going to rent it, and that's probably not. If you have the right people in there. I don't know. You might have less trouble. But so what's your take on that? How are you proceeding with this?
Well, we went in. They actually did have one tenant in there at one point who knew it was very, very haunted. She was experiencing many, many different things, but she still loved it. She didn't want to go, but unfortunately she didn't have the means to pay her rent. So she went in the rears, and they had to evict her. But they are looking to rent it out. They wanted to get my take on if I thought it was suitable, and I told them there's no way to tell you right now. We have to, because we're responsible for maintaining the environment in which we live, and that's the same environment that either feeds these things or breeds these things. So that's I'm not going to be able to tell them that until the new family gets in there. They could be another dysfunctional family. They could be somewhere on the edge that is driven further, into dysfunction by this entity, or they could be a very positive family that might, tell this thing, hey, there's no food here, and then this thing's going to bolt.
Yeah, so, well, that's true. Why don't we do the other MP3 that you sent a little bit earlier, and this has some, you can tell us what it is.
Oh, the one I sent you today?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one, I was just going over tonight. I got home a little early before your calling, and I was going over some stuff, and I'll tell you, there's a lot there that we got on our last visit. I was using a different recorder, one that's kind of very noisy, so I was having a hard time cleaning that static noise off of it. But clearly, I was holding it in my hand. Nobody else had it. And everybody was in the room with me, and everybody was very silent. It's like 2 syllables. It almost sounds like "kill me," or I don't want to. It's like looking at the clouds sometimes, with these EVPs, and but it almost sounds like it says "kill me," and then there's like a grunt a couple times, and then there's a loud, really deep growl, and that was not heard by anybody's ear. The recorder I was using is quite good at picking up things that you don't hear with your own ear, but and I'm familiar enough with them and experienced enough with them, and that type of growl, I have never gotten it with that recorder, so it's not something that's like some kind of, digital artifact or something. It's this was definitely unique to this investigation.
Okay, let's play that then. Can you?
Yeah, that's it's fine.
It's ready.
It's
okay,
ready, yes.
Ben's the producer tonight. I don't know anything about the electronics around this.
You should have faith in me.
I do. Just.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's. Are we putting that through?
Yeah, just I can barely hear it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can barely hear it on my end too.
Yeah. All right. Maybe there's some way to.
Well,
I know what to do. I got to figure it out. There we go. Yeah, I can hear that sort of kind of a growl thing at the end. But I don't know. I'm not sure how.
I don't know. I don't trust EVPs because our minds like to take things and make sense out of them.
Well, the earlier ones were. The other two were a little clearer with the gun.
They were much clearer, and as Shane, you already said that. I mean, the mic wasn't as good quality, and you tried to clean it up as best you could. So.
Yeah. Well, but again, these things are all they all fit maybe as a piece of the puzzle, but the real telling aspects of the case are determined by the people who are experiencing it.
Right.
Yeah, and then, like I said, this entity that's there, if it wasn't so obvious that it wasn't a dark entity, that growling wouldn't, be maybe something I brush off, but it's definitely in line with the behavior of this thing, and especially it's latched onto this. The third generation daughter now, after her father moved out after the divorce, and this thing latched on to her, and now it's it followed her. Actually, they moved out, and it followed her to their Air place. They moved to Air, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And it followed her there, and then now that she's had her newborn baby, and with her fiance, they named the baby after her fiance's grandfather, and they feel as though, and they've actually seen different, like a presence, and they believe it's the grandfather watching over, and they've had no problems in their new home in Westford, Massachusetts. So, but whenever they do go to this the old home in Pepperell, things start acting up again. So she's going to try to stay out of there. But the approach is, this thing has no human compassion. It's definitely...
Yeah, because it's not human.
Right, exactly. And so I think what the treatment is going to have to be, right now for her. And then if the new family moves in and they're experiencing any, certain types of things, especially if it's negative, then we'll treat them and their family and their environment. But for right now, with the third generation daughter that's experiencing the attachment right now, I think we're going to have to get into, in order to treat it, we have to treat the living, us. We have to treat the person that's being affected, and get her in a situation where she can stop giving this thing what it needs. And so I think there's gonna be some psychological components we're gonna need to address, and then in education, that's how I'm been very successful educating the people I've helped in the past with what to do, what not to do, how the mechanics work of this whole thing, especially the parasites, and you give them the proper education, and if they apply it, the thing goes away. So
yeah, exactly. If you know what's going on, you don't have to be afraid of it, and then you can deal with it.
Exactly.
And that can be difficult because people. We have the case in Maine. I mean, the guy was then, as you recall, he determined what this was, and he was taking steps. He was all excited about it, and didn't particularly want to hear our approach.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. She was just sort of giving attention to it, which is what it wanted, and he was sort of egging it on because he was like, yeah, I can milk this.
Yeah, but it sounds like, Shane, you got one that's following this family here, and that's I don't envy you. That's a difficult situation. Let's go back to that gunshot. Did you, now according to was it the grandmother who said that, or the mother who said that her father had been this grandfather who was fooling around with a shotgun, and actually fired it at one point or more?
Yes, shot a hole through the house.
Did you see any evidence of this damage? Or
no,
maybe it had been fixed, I don't know.
Yeah, it had been fixed years ago, but she did show me where the gunshot went through the house, right near the bathroom downstairs. And actually, that same spot, whether it's coincidence if he used that as a target or not, but that area is one of the centers of all the activity. It's almost like that area there, and then the area above it on the second floor. Those two areas in the same location, just up and down, that's where everything starts, right there.
See, I just whatever advice we can give you, I would suggest paying close attention to whoever moves in there, because I'm thinking, Ben, of this case in Providence. Remember a few years back.
Yeah. Where we brought our cousin along.
Yeah, the first cousin. Matter of fact, the fellow who was indirectly responsible for getting you involved in this, because I wanted to see if blood relatives had the same reactions to paranormal situations.
Thanks, Marshall.
Anyway, so we were in. It was I guess a very lovely three apartment house in a historic area of Providence, and the owner, very positive people.
Oh yeah,
a couple who owned the place.
So nice.
They said everybody who moved in there to that house across the way from them had, their lives fell apart.
Oh yeah, there was that one woman who worked at a bank, and she was really, really successful, and then she moved in and she lost everything.
Yeah. And now, of course, when that happens once, even twice, okay, well,
but it was
three times that I can remember. Multiple times, yeah. And you especially were able to trace an entity. It was sort of a pass-through kind of thing. It didn't seem like it was resident there, but it seemed it was coming through. And this surprised me, because I haven't often run into this. Is there any sort of come and go kind of place? Although this one seems to be attached to the family. Any sort of you mentioned this center being where this gunshot occurred in the area of a bathroom, which of course has water and conducts electromagnetic fields. Shane, what sort of, I suppose for lack of a better term, portals or doors or whatever? Have you identified anything besides that one?
Yeah, no, that would be the one.
Okay.
The entryway between right through the center of the house, basically, right through the stairwell, right in front of each staircase, and whether it's the cellar all the way up through to the top floor, just to the left of the top staircase. So, that would be the open door, or the portal, however we want to say it.
Because that seemed to be what happened in Providence. There was that. This kind of surprise. This is kind of weird for me, but that gargoyle, as they're called, they're the works of art faces that can be very benign to look at, but they hang on the walls. And
I mean, it makes you wonder why they're outside like cathedrals and things.
Well, you know why? Because I looked into that, because they face away from a building to keep. The parlance is to keep evil spirits away. And we found one in that basement. And this isn't something I would have looked for, but you found it, and it was that seemed to be the center of where this thing was coming through. And
it was really weird.
We got rid of it.
It was really creepy looking.
And as far as I have heard since, they didn't have too much trouble beyond that.
Yeah, I haven't heard from them in a long time.
No, well, that's usually a good sign.
That is usually a good sign.
So anyway, Shane, what are we? Okay, we're coming up kind of on.
We still have about 12 minutes.
Oh, okay, all right.
A little less.
Do you have any questions for Shane on this? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me. I don't envy him having to deal with it.
Well, he already. I was actually going to ask a question how you were going to go about, for lack of better words, fixing it, but you already sort of mentioned that. What kind of psychological treatment were you thinking?
Well, I think, for the family move-in, we're going to see what kind of type of family they have, and that move-in, and what takes place, and if I even need to go in. But as far as with the one that's being affected now, I think this is going to go out to anybody who thinks they might be experiencing a parasite or a negative entity. These things feed off of fear, and fear can be started for any reason in our life. A lot of us live in fear constantly of everything, of failure, of this or that.
Yep.
It's a negative emotion, so it's important to remember one thing. We normally, in that fear also breeds self-loathing. The self-loathing is usually because we're not doing the things that we need to be doing in our life. We're not going after our dreams, our passions. So keep track of where you want to go in life and go after it full force. Because if you don't, sometimes we fall into that negative, that self-loathing. We're disgusted with ourselves because we're not being who we need to be. And next thing you know, we're living in fear of everything. And so, stick with your goals, your dreams, and go after them. And this will probably never happen to you. But when you get down into a dark place and you're living in this fear of everything in this world, you become a target to these things, and then they're going to make you fear them, and it just escalates and goes further and further and further. So it's always important to stay positive in life and everything, have goals and achieve them, go after them. Yeah, no, that's well put.
Those are some great words right there.
Yeah, it's
a very good summarization.
all positive energy, and keep. And another thing I tell people too is, and I know you do too, Shane, is when you have a family, stick together. Tell your loved ones that you love them. Don't wait, and just keep that positive spirit and humor, faith, anything that's good.
Humor is very important.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think right now, sometimes with these parasites is, we say we don't. With certain people, and these are the toughest cases to treat, and is we say we don't want it there, we say we don't want it to be attached to us, we're afraid that it might affect our children or attach to our children, but sometimes people, they submit to being a victim. It's almost yes, and that's so wrong. And usually when they do, it's because that's what they expect. They expect failure from themselves. They expect negative things in their life, and that's why I say we can't live in that fear. We can't live with that mindset. We have to be positive all the time, and I think right now there's going to be a little bit of spiritual cleansing with the person being affected right now, and I think we're off to a good start so far, and I see good things for in the future.
Oh, that's good. With these upper echelon entities, I've seen them fight back in the sense that if they can't victimize one person, they'll move on to someone else in the family, and I know you're aware of that, and we'll be able to take care of that. Well, that's extremely interesting. What else are you working on? We got a few more. What else are you working on? And where can people find out more about you at your website and stuff?
Yeah, Trueghost.com, TRUEGHOST.com. And like I say on the website, I'm not a website. I'm not there to post all kinds of stuff. I'm a researcher, and that's what I dedicate myself to, is helping people. So there's some information about myself and how to get a hold of me. And, if you need me, I'll be there as soon as I can. But that's my passion. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help people, and that's my goal, my purpose.
Well, that's excellent, and we almost never endorse anyone, and I would say, because we know him so well, Shane is a good guy, and you pretty much can't go wrong if you stick with Shane.
I'll give you a little stamp of approval.
Well, for what it's worth, anyway. Okay. Shane, thank you so much. Will we see you in Leominster on October 26th, do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's the first New England UFO conference, which, believe it or not, can be related to some of these things.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Shane, just keep us posted on that. We'll be praying for you, my friend, and you're doing it. Sounds like you got it well in hand, and bless these people who are going through this. All too many people do.
All right, you guys have a great night.
You too.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Shane Sirois, everybody, trueghost.com. I think he's probably about the only paranormal investigator I can think of.
I like him.
I like him too.
He's a very nice guy.
Exactly. Well, it's not just that, he's very capable.
Indeed.
Yeah. See, as I say, I met him at a case here in Woonsocket a number of years ago, back in the 90s. And the person had called in both of us, something I didn't particularly appreciate, but there he was sitting in the car waiting for the time, and I went over and introduced myself, and he gets it. He got it from the beginning, and he gets it now, and that's really unusual. And, of course, you can see the results.
Indeed.
All right, well, just a reminder that we will have a drawing on our Monday, October 7th show, 1 week from today, for 2 free family packs of 4 tickets each to the first New England UFO Conference in Leominster, Massachusetts on Saturday, October 26th. That's what we just talked about with Shane. Among the speakers will be some of the UFO experts who are regulars on our show, Stanton Friedman, Kathleen Martin, Peter Robbins, among others. And Ben and I will host the UFO movie venue. We'll interview speakers before a live audience between films, and we'll present a program of our own on UFOs and the paranormal after dinner.
Do we know what movies we're going to be presenting?
I just asked the organizer, Steve Fermani, that today.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are we going to be like presenting like This Island Earth or things like that?
Well, some of the old classics, and I thought that perhaps you and maybe your brother Jonathan, who's kind of an expert on those things, would be able to comment.
I hope they play Plan 9 from outer space.
Or we could be like Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh,
the three of us sit up front and make wisecracks during the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what we'll be known for.
Well, I hope not, but that can be entertaining. Anyway, we will present a program of our own after dinner. For tickets, in case you don't win the contest, visit neufoconference.vpweb.com. There is a link on our show homepage to that site. And it's going to be a great day, and you can come meet us. We ourselves will be there the whole day, as I say, doing this. This. The UFO venue, I guess, is going to be above the main hall in the City Hall in Leominster. That's where this is going to occur.
Right.
But all the hotel rooms are booked. We had trouble getting a room. We only live an hour away, but we don't do mornings, so we're going to go up Friday night.
We're not morning people here.
No.
All right, and to enter the contest, just send an email to paul@behindtheparanormal.com or drop us a snail mail at Behind the Paranormal, care of WOON 1240 AM, 985 Park Avenue, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, 02895. Please include your name, address, phone number, and email address. Please remember the drawing is only for the tickets. Again, that is, the drawing is only for the tickets. It does not provide transportation or accommodations. And again, the drawing will take place on the air 1 week from tonight on Monday, October 7th at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Almost exactly a week. Little less.
Right.
Little less now.
And one of our guests that evening will be Bob Schroeder, one of the speakers at the mathematician and really interesting fellow.
His name's Schroeder?
Bob Schroeder.
Bob Schroeder.
You met him, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I remember faces. I don't really remember names.
Well, you think you're the one who's 60 years old.
I don't know why. I'm just terrible at remembering names.
Well, you're a busy fellow.
I guess, yeah.
Right. Now, on November 10th, for some reason I was saying December 8th, but it's November 10th, we are scheduled to do our 500th show. And that will be right here. That will not be right here. That will be on our CBS show on Sunday evenings, which you would, around here, probably have to get on a computer or your iPhone.
Right, unless you have an HD radio.
Yeah, then you can get the WBMX in Boston. But anyway,
Indeed.
We'd like to hear your suggestions for what you'd like us to do on that show. The prevailing opinion right now is people would like us to do a wrap-up of our best shows since our debut in 2008. Thanks a lot. That's the most work that any script can take.
I know.
And maybe even do some clips, but we're going to try to get on that and see if we can't get that done for you. So, again, let us know your opinion on that on Behind the Paranormal show page or on Facebook, or drop us an email at paul@behindtheparanormal.com or ben@behindtheparanormal.com, or the snail mail address that Ben mentioned before.
And we had a great evening on September 25th at the Harris Public Library here in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. A big crowd. We had a big crowd, I should say, and many, many great questions. And thanks to all of you who came, by the way. And on October 23rd, we will be speaking at the Lincoln Public Library in Lincoln, Rhode Island, and that is free, and no registration is required.
And you can find my books on Barnes & Noble Nook, e-reader, and Amazon Kindle, also Amazon.com. And because so many have requested it, we are working on an audiobook project for that. And for the book, Ben and I are currently working on Cosmic Journey Behind the Paranormal. Stay
then
tuned
we can lull you to sleep with our soothing voices talking.
Oh, great.
Alrighty, and you can visit our website, behindtheparanormal.com, where you can find over 500 free podcasts of past shows. Also, check out our site at www.newenglandghosts.com, where there are case studies and photos, along with articles by my dad.
Okay, and on our CBS Radio edition on Sunday, October 6th in Boston, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Windsor, and Seattle, Vancouver, we will welcome back cultural anthropologist William Gladstone for a look at the power of the 12. I'm not going to tell you what that is. You have to listen.
Great. And next week, October 7th, we are right here on WOON 1240 AM. We will welcome mathematician and aerospace engineer Bob Schroeder for a look at the physics of the paranormal. So get your questions to us at paul@behindtheparanormal.com, or you can check us out on Facebook, and you can ask questions via that Facebook page.
Okay, and also Bob will be a speaker at the New England UFO Conference. We ready for the quote? Okay. We leave you this evening with some wisdom from American scientist and explorer Sylvia Earle. I find the lure of the unknown irresistible. I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.